everybody. Good evening. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. My name is Tanya from the Canadiva. Oh, I can't see. I don't know why I'm trying to play myself. I can't see anyway. Welcome, everybody. Today we're here to talk about these hemp regulations. What's the emergency, as you see, is our hashtag. So if you're sharing this, please tag what is the emergency. And I'm joined by some of my dear friends who are hemp retailers, CBD company or CBD brand owners. So I'm going to bring up first, I'm going to bring up Jamie. She's the founder of Hustle and Flow. And we're just going to have a little chat before we bring everybody else up.
Hi, Tanya.
Jamie, how are you, my love?
I am well, thank you. I want to, first of all, thank you, everyone who's joining, who's tuning in. Thank you so much for joining us. And Tanya, I want to say a special thank you to you, because just so everyone knows, I freaked out when this happened and I called out to Tanya and said, we need advocacy, we need help. Where can we host an event? And immediately, Tanya, you said yes. So thank you so much for hosting this.
My pleasure. My pleasure. Thank you so much. I'm sorry that this is going on, but if anything I could offer is our platform so that we can help educate people. So let me bring up the rest of our crew. We're bringing up Melissa, founder of Hemp and Humanity. We're bringing up Nee, founder of Sativa Remedy. Welcome, ladies. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. I just wanted to do a little roundtable. Introduce yourself, but just to share why it was important for you to help put this on, or to put this on. I'm just here as a vehicle. So why is these hemp breaks so important? And we'll start with Melissa.
Thank you so much, Tanya. Nice to see you, Jamie and Nee, my fellow collaborators. This was super important for us to address. When these regulations came out in emergency fashion back in July, it caught many of us off guard. And my company is Hemp and Humanity. I'm in Woodstock. I support over 40 women-owned brands in my shop, plus other New York State hemp brands. As a New York State licensed hemp cannabinoid retailer, I am compliant. I generate sales tax for New York State, and I felt very threatened by these regulations because I can immediately see how they would impact not only my business, but the businesses of so many of you who I care about, who I support. And so I was very happy to join in and lend what I could to this group so that we can help everybody get up to speed and understand these regulations better. And I'm just so thankful to be here with you guys. Thank you so much.
Thank you. And Nee?
Hi, everyone. I'm super grateful to be sharing this space with you all and to be in this advocacy space with you. And really why these hemp regulations and why we need to have this conversation is because the industry is ever changing. And as new emergency regulations come up, I think it is our responsibility as business owners to inform the consumers. We've been navigating a lot of consumer questions on the industry, but also as entrepreneurs who are navigating regulations, it seems like every 6 to 12 months we have to stick together and be able to make our voices heard. And I'm super grateful to be sharing the space with you, to be able to use this platform to amplify the message of why is there an emergency, and we want to talk about it. We want to help you, whether you're an entrepreneur or a consumer, understand the nitty gritty of these regulations. And we're going to dive into it tonight. We're going to have some fun with the Canadiva platform. So thank you again, Tanya, for blessing us with this platform and helping us to amplify our message of what is the emergency.
Jamie, do you want to chime in a little bit about what's going on with you and why doing this was so important for you?
Yes, of course. I just want to point out a comment that Oleg put in, fake emergency. Yes, Oleg, you're right. Again, thank you. I'm so happy to be sharing this space with you ladies, with Melissa, with me, Tanya. They've been so special throughout this process. So just to give a little bit of a background, you know, we're here because we're all super passionate about wellness, period. And the ability to be able to impact people's lives, right? We do everything legal. We do everything by the books. As Melissa said, we generate sales, we generate taxes, and so we're in a position where we're small emerging entrepreneurs or brands, and we're not in a position where a lot of these people with large funds can just say, okay, things change, let me make a new product, because they don't really care about people or the sustainability aspect or the packaging aspect or the how, if it's organic, any of it. It's just about a revenue business. It's only money over people. We're here to really drive and and so it was important to, when it came down, it felt like my world was tumbling down. It felt as if my livelihood was on the line overnight, literally. I personally made a hefty investment into the brand from a legal perspective. We paid attorneys at the time to follow all of the guidelines from packaging to dosing, and attorneys are not cheap. So that alone was well over $10,000. And so when this came down, of course, it felt super heavy. And I reached out to these ladies that are here with me tonight and said, what can we do? And thankfully, they calmed me down and we started meeting weekly. So just so you all know, before this event, we've been meeting weekly to prep and how we're going to move forward. And now we're here, and there's still work to do after the event. And so just thank you for joining us and wanting to be here and share this time with us. You're muted.
All right, thank you. So, Melissa, I know you were going to jump in first with your overview before we get into the nitty gritty. Now, in truth, the regulations are about 19 pages long, but we are not going to read them. But we're going to do some how we got here and where we are and kind of where we're going kind of situation. Is that fair, ladies? So, Melissa, you're going to start with your overview. So let's get rocking and rolling.
Okay, thank you. Hi, this again, Melissa Gibson from Hemp and Humanity. I've been in this industry since 2016. I am a New York State licensed hemp cannabinoid retailer and hemp educator and advocate who has a big passion for the whole plant, because this plant can feed us, heal us, shelter us, clothe us, fuel us, all of those things. But tonight we're here to talk about these emergency New York State hemp regulations. And my job here is to sort of set up the context for which we're going to examine the nitty gritty of these hemp regs with me at Sativa Remedy. So for now, I'm going to cover things like what do hemp regulations look like with regard to the nation and other states? Secondly, why do we have these emergency hemp regulations now? The 2018 Farm Bill happened in 2018. So what's going on right now that are making it happen? We're also going to cover who do these regulations impact? Who are the stakeholders? There's way more than those of us who are on this call and other categories. So we're going to break that down. And finally, we're going to give a little ode to the New York hemp cannabinoid market that's been holding it down for the last 5 years while we're waiting for our adult use brothers and sisters to come on board. So that's what we're going to talk about. And Tanya, if you wouldn't mind going to slide 1. All right, so we can't start talking about the hemp regulations unless we referenced what hemp is. We all know that the federal definition of hemp was established with the 2018 Farm Bill that stated it's cannabis that has less than 0.3% Delta-9 THC by dry weight, which is a threshold that opened up the CBD market in the United States. Some of us were involved in that market ahead of time, but that was a little bit of a gray area. But since then, USDA and the FDA have declined to specifically regulate CBD, and they passed that responsibility on to Congress, which passed it to the states so that each state has its own hemp regulations. Basically, it's a hemp hot potato. And in May, the DEA even piped in with a proposal of a 0.1% THC limit. Can you imagine? So maybe it's not a bad idea that it's the states that are taking care of things for now, but it just depends on which state you live in. But these piecemeal regulations by state are confusing. And what makes it even more confusing is that CBD can be derived, as we know, from hemp and from cannabis, or from cannabis. Also, the entire hemp industry is founded on an arbitrary THC percentage that is not founded in scientific or botanical evidence. So it's hard to create regs and policies around it when you have that start as your foundation. And this is reflected in the very wide variation of hemp regulations by state, with an alarming number of states that are looking to effectively eliminate access to broad spectrum and full spectrum products outside of the medical or adult use cannabis space. And state regulations range from highly restrictive regulations like Tennessee, where in 2024, it will be illegal to sell any kind of CBD to anyone under 21, or in Kansas, where no traceable THC is allowed, so no full spectrum there, to even surprisingly, California, which has proposed a 0.1% THC limit and has banned any hemp-derived cannabinoids. They're only for the cannabis-derived cannabinoids. And on the other end of the spectrum, we have states like Montana and Indiana, where hemp cannabinoids are fully legal and are based on that federal definition of hemp. And Minnesota, which although there are some restrictions there, they spell it out plainly and they're sensible. And they have also allowed their industry stakeholders time to implement the regulations, unlike the emergency ones handed down by New York, which were immediate. You should also know that 14 states have banned Delta 8, including New York State, which brings up the issue of hemp derivatives and isomers that can be naturally synthesized, but come from CBD as a source material. So that complicates things. So in 2023, many of these issues will be tackled by the new Farm Bill, we hope. But those are going to expire at the end of September, and we're almost there. So it looks like there's probably going to be an extension. But it's expected that the definition of hemp will be modified to a 1% total THC threshold, and that cannabinoid hemp will be further distinguished from industrial hemp. And that's good news in that the industrial hemp industry can stop, being treated like they are criminals, and we would eliminate DEA lab testing and background checks and things just so they can grow the kind of biomass that's necessary for that industry to thrive. So slide number 2, Tanya. So why now? The New York emergency regs were handed down in July with the explanation that intoxicating hemp cannabinoid products pose a threat to the public, especially to youth and to adolescents. Okay, but protecting the youth has always been an issue, and nobody on this call is looking to peddle cannabis to youth. But these regulations, are they really needed right this second? And what's behind the attention that hemp-derived products are receiving now more than ever, even when they were first legalized back in 2018? So first of all, we have to talk about the hemp definition loophole. So that 0.3% threshold definition in the 2018 Farm Bill refers to THC, Delta 9 THC by dry weight. It's a percentage. It's not an exact amount, so that allows for THC to be present in some formulas. Secondly, the proliferation of intoxicating hemp-derived products has confused people because when we think of being high, we don't think of hemp. Also, we've got the proliferation of the low THC beverage market, and that's made a huge impact. To illustrate this point, in 2021 in New York State, there were only a small number of licensed hemp cannabinoid retailers like Hemp and Humanity and Sativa Remedy. But compared now in 2023, we've got over 5,500 of them. And that's largely due to the expansion of that THC beverage sector, low THC beverage sector. It's was being sold at convenience stores and bars. It was being offered to mainstream, and mainstream really embraced it. So that's another reason why it has come to light right now. Next, we have the unlicensed or unmonitored and bad actors in our industry. We all know that there have been challenges to the rollout of adult use in New York. It's been 2 years since legalization, and it's been a painstaking process. But there are those who are taking advantage of that gap. And there are stores that are posing or outlets that are posing as legal dispensaries when they are not. And it's been difficult to monitor them with limited resources. And it's a whole other topic, but their prevalence in our industry also plays a role. And finally, we are launching an adult use market. So the focus has been on this and not much on hemp. So even some folks in our own industry, if you ask them, they might be okay with having cannabinoids only sold in dispensaries for market share reasons. But that would be devastating to the hemp industry of New York. And we're here to explain why that would be the case so that we can bring everybody together. Okay, slide number 3, Tanya. So this is just a depiction of sort of the different players. Who is the stakeholders? Who is impacted by these hemp regulations? The emergency hemp regulations will not solve for all of the issues I just discussed. Those issues require thoughtful, sensible regulations, not a Hail Mary emergency regulation, which with no time for compliant businesses to adjust. So while all of us on this call have had our businesses and livelihoods threatened, why aren't more folks up in arms about this cause, about these unfair regulations? And it's because these regulations have some intended and some unintended consequences, creating winners and losers, with the most damaging harm going to women-led small New York businesses. So I just want to start with the bigs and circle around. What I mean by the bigs, I mean big pharma, big cannabis, big alcohol, big tobacco, and big anti-cannabis folks. In some ways, the inability for small businesses to compete in this market and for us to provide access to these products and work directly with consumers interferes with the market share and the dollars associated with these big organizations. So although some of them might see the bigger picture, no pun intended, or maybe pun intended, for the most part, they will be the winners with these hemp regulations. And they can, as Jamie also alluded to, because they're bigger, they can pivot a lot quicker and they can absorb what these hemp regulation changes would mean. Next, we have the adult use market. And let's be honest, they could stand to gain if nobody else can sell full spectrum CBD and everybody has to go to a dispensary to do that. But we hope that isn't the case. And we know that it's better if everyone has access and to the most products possible. Next, we have the regulators, and I don't blame them. They have a lot on their plate and they feel like there are so many issues that they want to solve. And they are trying to quiet some of the naysayers, deal with those unlicensed stores. But these regulations aren't necessarily the way to do it. But in some ways, putting these out makes them feel better and they feel like they're doing something. And we all want to protect youth and access that way. So that's okay. We're all together on that. Medical cannabis. Many of these states, and what would happen in New York, is that medical cannabis organizations and ROs would also, if we are unable to provide access to our communities, they would also be big winners because, again, folks would have to go there in order to get some of the basic full spectrum formulas and broad spectrum formulas and amazing products that we're able to currently sell right now and that consumers have come to rely on. The unlicensed operators, we talked about this. In some ways, it's a negative because if you are operating, let's just say you're selling things in your store because you had no idea that they are intoxicating at all, or you don't really understand it, and you've had your products, within reach of little kids, that's a win for you because you're going to be more in compliance. But in general, these hemp regs are not going to solve that issue, although it will help the proliferation of unlicensed operators, because let's face it, if they're okay with operating without a license now, they're going to be okay with keeping those products on their shelves anyway, and they'll get them from other states. Hemp retailers, I can tell you that this is a big loss for us. We have been working diligently, many of us, for years to be able to provide safe, effective products to consumers. And I personally support, again, many women-owned businesses, and these regulations caused me to take off many great companies and products from my shelves. And quite frankly, it will affect my ability to keep my doors open. It's the truth. So who's a winner? These non-New York hemp brands, because these consumers that have been relying on these products that we have helped to build, we've helped to build over the last 5 years, this incredible market in New York State for cannabinoids. People are feeling better. They're sleeping better. They have less pain. And without the ability to sell to them directly, consumers are just going to jump online and grab it from other states. And that is so disheartening, Oleg, for sure. And then New York brands, for the converse reason, it's a negative. There are so many incredible New York hemp brands that, whether it's their packaging they would have to redo or their formulas, this is devastating. This could cause them to close their doors forever. And it's just not fair. And I know that is not what the regulators intended when they handed down these regulations. And then finally, consumers. So listen, it's the consumers. They're the biggest loser. They might gain a little bit in that we definitely will make sure that things are safe. There's other ways of doing it, not necessarily these regulations. So in that way, we're safe. We don't want kids getting their hands on products that might be in stores that just don't even know what they're doing, or know what they're doing even worse, and having them out everywhere. But in general, all those consumers that have come to rely on these products would lose. The final slide, Tanya, please. So again, most of these regulations will hurt the New York hemp cannabinoid market. We've been holding it down. Brands like Hustle and Flow, Reunion, Chime and Chill, retailers like Sativa Remedy and Hemp and Humanity, we have been compliant, we've been responsible, we've been ethical. We've been expanding that consumer demand. We've been educating about the plant. We have been filling in that gap between adult use and medical for the last 5 years. And we're not doing it for the big money, because that's clearly, but we do it because we believe in this plant. We're trying to make a living. We are dedicated to providing access and education to consumers. We are destigmatizing the plant in a very effective way. And we are helping people to establish their own relationship with this plant, not for the prospect of wealth that maybe adult use might bring, but just because we want to be of service to consumers and to this plant. So as everyone has mentioned, there is a disproportionate impact on women-led and small businesses who tend to be leading the New York hemp industry here. So there's a huge cost of these emergency regulations on those businesses in particular. And it's the immediacy of these regulations that are also significant. Small businesses and women-led businesses will suffer. You don't actually solve the issues of unlicensed operators this way. You give them further advantages. Thousands of dollars of inventory is wasted, and thousands more will be wasted because they're going to need to cover new packaging with no time to fundraise. My heart goes out to those brands that put everything into their packaging, into their formulas. This could cripple hemp manufacturers in New York and hemp retailers, folks who tend not to have deep pockets. And without input or comment, however well-meaning these regulations were intended to protect the public, the harm done to women-led and small businesses is catastrophic for New York. And most importantly, consumers will lose access and suffer the most. To be clear, we are not against regulation. We are for safe and sensible regulations that protect the public and promote New York State businesses. The New York hemp emergency regulations do more harm than good.
Thank you so much, Melissa. That was perfect. That was so, you hit everything. Thank you. So I want to jump now to Nee, who's going to break down the regulations. Again, we're not trying to say that regulation shouldn't happen. We need regulations, but are they sensible? Do they really think consumer first? Are they thinking about small business owners? Are they thinking about New York-based businesses. And right now, it's not leaning that much. So we want to talk to Nia. And also, if you're watching this stream right now, we are also going live on LinkedIn and YouTube and our Facebook group. If you are able to share it, feel free to do so. I can put a link in the chat, but if you are watching, feel free to share. And I'm gonna, Nee, we're gonna do your prezzo. Let me get to the beginning, and then we're gonna fly through this. And Nee, rock and roll.
Let's go. Thank you again, everyone, for joining us. And Melissa, amazing preface. So right now we are going to go into the nitty gritty and into some of the parts of these regulations that have become really problematic for entrepreneurs and really restrictive for consumers. I want to preface this with I'm not an attorney. I'm a really good reader. So I want to help you dive into the language. Like Melissa was saying earlier, many states, when regulations come out, they're also simplified so that entrepreneurs and consumers can fully understand what it is that they are allowed and not allowed to do. And my biggest problem with these regulations is they came out, and we'll move right into the first slide, Tanya, is on July 19th, the New York State Cannabis Control Board and the Office of Cannabis Management voted to enact emergency regulations. These were 20 pages of regulations, along with 1 page of a reasoning. It took about a week for me as an entrepreneur who is running a storefront. For those of you who don't know, I own Sativa Remedy. We're a 7-day-a-week hemp dispensary here to provide education and guidance to our consumers, and I had about a week time to be able to process my own emotions and then translate to not only my consumers, but my fellow entrepreneurs so that we would understand the playing field that we were now given and how it shifted so fast. So with that being said, let's dive right in. These regulations were meant to ensure that the Cannabis Control Board could prevent the manufacture and retail of intoxicating hemp cannabinoid products. And as Melissa has said before, a lot of these restrictions actually restrict full spectrum hemp cannabinoid products, not just intoxicating cannabinoid products. So we believe that if these regulations move forward, which they have, that it would eliminate access to affordable hemp-derived CBD products that many all across the United States have access to, and that any hemp product containing more than 1 milligram of THC would be restricted and banned from retail in the state of New York. Keep in mind, though, consumers will still have access via online, so it really cripples those of us who are in the state of New York right now and the brands that are in New York right now. So we'll go over the first part of the regulations and how they affect hemp flowers. So hemp flowers now have to test total 0.3% THC, which means it is the activated THC and the unactivated THC for a total of less than 0.3% THC. The problem is, and I've learned this through my 5 years of experience in the hemp industry, is that most top cultivators of hemp cannabinoid flowers rarely test under 0.3% THC. They might test 0.5, 0.8, but realistically, they are still non-intoxicating. So this total 0.3, again, is putting already distressed farmers, hemp farmers, and eliminating their market to be able to bring their flower products to market. As an opinion and as a solution, we really think that we should wait on the 2023 federal farm bill, but also to move to a 1% total THC, which is what we're hearing is in the works on the federal level. And it provides more flexibility to hemp farmers to still cultivate high quality hemp CBD flowers. I've had many customers, we have removed our hemp flowers because many of our hemp flowers test 0.4 or 0.5. And now I have consumers that are no longer able to access high quality, organically grown hemp flowers from small craft hemp cultivators. And I find this really problematic. While we know there are so many other folks that are importing in illicit cannabis and selling it everywhere. It's so proliferated. So we want to be able to loosen the regs on this, but also reality is to support farmers. Hemp farmers are those who have built up the hemp and cannabis industry. The first folks we licensed were hemp farmers in New York State. And we want and should continue to support a thriving hemp industry in New York State for future generations who wish to grow high quality hemp cultivars. Next slide, please. Now, with that, another nitty gritty is that as a hemp retailer, I'm not allowed to sell hemp flowers in the form of a cigarette, cigar, or pre-roll. So I find this to be very nitpicky. And I don't know how many of you remember, but in 2020, New York State tried to ban hemp flowers completely. New York State tried to ban hemp flowers. Hemp farmers and retailers banded together and got that changed. But we were not given the ability to sell a smokable product, thus removing the ability to allow us to sell pre-rolls. We really don't understand why the target specifically, when in reality, we know that hemp flowers can be smoked, but it can also be used to make into tinctures, edibles, topicals. So to limit consumers to only having whole flower, but not allowing them the convenience and the ease of pre-roll hemp flowers is really detrimental to consumers as well as to brands who find that pre-rolls, the ease and the convenience can be a value-added product to the market. Next slide, please. So once again, we ask, what is the emergency? Now, diving into how these will affect hemp tinctures. According to the regulations, if the hemp cannabinoid product is a supplement manufactured under Part 111 of Title 21, it should contain no more than 3,000 milligrams total cannabinoid per product, with no more than 100 milligrams per individual serving. 3,000 milligrams of total cannabinoid per package, with no more than 100 milligrams of total cannabinoid per serving if orally consumed. So next slide, please, Tanya. Again, we are putting random numbers and very restrictive regulations on products. The reality is at Sativa Remedy, we retail a 120 ml bottle. We call it our big gal, and it has 6,000 milligrams total cannabinoid at 50 milligrams of CBD per serving. The 50 milligram makes sense, but now I'm not allowed to sell this 120 ml bottle, even though for many folks, it works out to be $1 a dose, $1 a serving. And again, we are limiting consumer access to affordable plant medicine. And that's something Sativa Remedy, since our inception, has stood behind, is that if we are to bring cannabis to the forefront, we have to make it accessible to the masses. Accessible and safe regulations are what we are trying to go after. And this doesn't make sense. Next slide, please. Now, how do they affect your edibles? This is your gummies, your beverages, your chocolates. If a hemp product is consumed, food or beverage, that it should contain no more than 25 milligrams of total cannabinoid. And it will also be forced to have a 15-to-1 ratio of CBD to THC. It should also contain a max of 10 milligrams of total THC per package, with no more than a milligram of THC per serving. I had to read this 3 times to understand what it was that they were asking me as a retailer to do. As a retailer at Sativa Remedy, we vet products and we select the brands and the companies that we represent on our shelves. So as an entrepreneur, as a retailer, I am now having to vet products on a different level and understand that. We were not given a FAQ, a fact sheet, or any sort of simplified version of these regulations. And we had to dive into these to understand what that meant. I have spoke with so many other retailers who don't understand the difference between ratio versus milligram versus total milligrams per packaging. So with that being said, next slide. So the problem is, depending on the consumer, 25 milligrams total cannabinoid is very limiting. Consumers really deserve full spectrum access to full spectrum hemp products that are not limited to just 1 milligram of THC. In reality, if a product has 50 milligrams of CBD, it could potentially have 2 milligrams of THC. But now, are we making those products illegal? And we really believe that there are better solutions. And as stakeholders and entrepreneurs, we really wish we were brought to the table to work together with regulators. And with that being said, we find that states like Minnesota have passed regulations that support hemp-derived products while promoting access to safe, vetted, and tested products. We really want to support a max of 5 milligrams of THC per serving limit on hemp cannabinoid products, which would allow the expansion of New York State hemp brands and allow them to bring different products, innovative products to the marketplace. Next slide, please. Hemp retailers will not be able to sell any sort of inhalable, smokable products to those under 21. Let's make this clear. This regulation is probably the one piece of regulation we all at this table agree with. Most hemp retailers do not sell hemp products to those under 21. And we understand that oftentimes the retailing of unregulated, non-compliant products are often proliferated by unregulated retailers, not compliant hemp cannabinoid retailers. And we want to be able to be brought to the table to work on sensible, effective regulations that will support women and minority-owned brands in New York State. Now, our industry is going through so much turmoil, and for us as women-owned, minority-owned businesses, we are also now suffering. And some of the harms that are being created they're going to be irreparable. Next slide, please. With that being said, we want you to, if you are a retailer, a brand, to fill out our grievance form, work together on solutions with us. What do you as a consumer or as an entrepreneur need to build sustaining, thriving hemp cannabinoid businesses in New York State? We're going to be working on public comment soon. We encourage you as a consumer to put in your public comment, as an entrepreneur to put in your comments and make our voices heard, because we know the regulators, they have a lot on their plate, but we as entrepreneurs in the hemp industry also need to be heard, as well as the rest of the industry.
Thank you. I put the link to the hemp grievance form in the chat. Thank you, Nee. That was so great. Again, sensible, safe and sensible. And I just saw a post where they were the hemp products were in a grocery store, and they were the beverages. I don't know if they're carding people. I'm gonna be honest with you. I have no idea. But let's hope that they are good retailers. So please, if you are a retailer, fill out our grievance form. We posted it on our page. We got a couple of the grievances. I want Jamie to go over them. Some of the grievances we got were.
Yes. And I realized that you may not be able, to those who are tuning in, you may not be able to click on the link for the form. So if you can't, I dropped in my email. Melissa just dropped her email. We'll send it to you. Email us and we'll send you the form. So I'm just going to read a few of the grievances that we've collected. And so one here, people will not receive the medicine they need. This is so true. Not everyone, CBD has a marketplace, right? It has a place in its market. In the market, not everyone wants to go directly to THC. As you all know, it depends on a unique physiology, on what targeted relief we're looking for. There's so many variables. There's someone else here, we're not listing who, just to keep their information private, but these are the grievances that we've collected. And the other one says the proposed regulations and limitations have not been properly thought out and will effectively halt our ability to offer products that have been carefully formulated to offer real benefits. The hemp industry is hard enough without the goalposts being shifted. This is something that, again, even if for us, we're part of the cannabis family, Melissa, Nee, myself. Just because we have CBD products doesn't mean that we're separate from the family, right? We're still part of the cannabis family. And so we're really asking for everyone in this industry to be an ally. We're an ally of the cannabis industry as a whole. And so we're just asking for the same in return. We're supposed to be a family here. I'll say this, another grievance that I just encountered literally a few days ago, last week, I think it was Thursday. A customer reached out. So when we speak about consumers and how they're going to be harmed by this, a customer reached out last Thursday. And the way that it led there was very interesting, but I knew it was just meant to be. So to keep the story short, she reached out to say how much she wanted to share her experience. She loved our products, all of them. She had tried both the day and nighttime soft gels and our spray. She found us. She had gone to her doctor, who's an alternative medicine doctor. She shared what she was looking for. The doctor sent her to House and Works, the one dispensary that carries us. And she found us there. And so she tried us and she loved that. She loved the products and she reached out to share that. And she also said, we actually had a conversation because her when she reached out, she wanted to talk. And she also shared that it's been very difficult for her to find quality CBDs in New York when she goes to these unlicensed retailers. And she's tried a number of products. And so again, Melissa has said it, me have said it, we've all said it. It's not just harming our businesses. It's not just forcing me to perhaps go into bankruptcy overnight. It's harming the consumers that have come to and loved our products. Because again, going back to the beginning, all of the brands that Melissa and me carry, they vet their brands personally themselves. This is not some online big marketplace where you just put your product and you don't know what's in it and who's behind the brands. And the fact that the smaller brands have invested so much, have led with so much passion to be able to offer this. Why do we offer these products? Because we knew there was a gap in the market. We knew that when we started it, there was a gap and we wanted to fulfill that gap. We wanted to reach that. And now we're being threatened. Our livelihoods are being threatened. The consumers are not going to be able to get their medicine. And again, we've posted the form. We'll send the link. We need to collect as many grievances from everyone. One of the comments, I need to read this because I said, it's frustrating. So Ciara mentioned that OCM was in Buffalo today and raided a shop and took all CBD products. It's so absurd. There's, like Melissa said, there's 5,600 illicit shops in New York State. I'm in Bushwick, I'm in Brooklyn, and then I live in Queens. They're everywhere, they're in every corner. And I've personally spoken to some of them where they don't care what they sell. If they get ready today, guess what? They're making $100,000 a month. They'll open something else the next month and they'll sell cell phone cases for all they care, or they just reopen and sell the same stuff again. And so we're calling for allies. We really need to, this message, we wanted to reach the OCM. We want to have a conversation and sit down with them. Like everyone has said on the presentation here, that we want regulations, but they need to be safe. They need to be sensible. What was input in what was put in place overnight is not the way to go. And so I know that we have some guest speakers that are coming on, and they're going to share their grievances and their experiences. And Kimber, Tanya is going to introduce them, but we have Kimber and Eve. They'll be able to share a little bit more and share their grievances from their heart to you as well.
So I'm going to actually take the grievances off, so it's just us. We brought some new guests to the table. Eve Simonson, yes? from
Yes,
Reunion CBD, and Kimber. She wears many hats. She's the director of education for the Canadiva, and she's the founder of a CBD brand called Chime and Chill. So thank you for joining us. My question to you is, how are these regulations affecting you? I'm going to start with Eve, but I also want you to, big up your brand a little bit. We've never met, Eve, so nice to meet you. And
nice to meet you.
please share.
Yes, thank you. Thank you all so much. First of all, this is an incredible group of folks here, and I'm really honored to be part of this conversation. My name is Eve. My brand is called Reunion. I'll give a tiny bit of backstory. Our entire brand was born out of my own family reuniting. So we are a family-owned and operated brand. My brother and I had been estranged from our father for many years, and in 2018, he decided to buy a farm and start growing hemp in Oregon. And that was really at the core of what brought us back together as a family. This plant has a whole lot of very special, we hold a lot in our hearts around this plant. Not only for all of its healing qualities and everything that it's helped all of us through personally, but as well as just it's really what brought us back together as a family, hence the name Reunion. My dad is a scientist turned hemp farmer. He actually in Oregon he's been involved in the industrial hemp space for 10 years now. He's a professor at Oregon State, and he actually was responsible for the first college credited course on industrial hemp in the nation, actually. So our family has some roots in the hemp space. However, I am rather new to it. This is 3 years now that we've been building Reunion, and we really just launched in December. We are full spectrum. We're certified organic. It's, we're like everybody else here. We're blood, sweat, and tears. We've put everything that we've got into building this. And while our farm is in Oregon, I am in New York. I've been a New Yorker for 20 plus years, and 90% of our retail clients are here in New York State. So the impact for us is huge from a retail standpoint. We're very small. We only have 4 SKUs at the moment, and 2 of them are essentially no longer able to be sold in New York. Which I feel lucky because I know a lot of brands don't have any products that they can still hold on to. So I feel really fortunate that 2 of our formulas still are within that threshold. But overall, these regulations are just seemingly very arbitrary. We are all about regulations, being safe, being sensible. We support all of this, but we really are taking a hit, and it's impacting us. It's impacting people who purchase our products from stores in New York. And so I'm just grateful to be part of this conversation.
I realize I'm muted. Thank you again, Eve. I appreciate you. Kimber?
Hi, everyone. I'm Kimber Arezi. I am the founder of Chime and Chill. I do pre-dosed oral solutions. One of the hardest things about this new regulation, like everyone else, we follow regulations. And when we plan out what we're going to do for the year ahead, we take those regulations that have been provided to us and we make a checklist and we say, does our packaging meet all of these requirements and all of these needs? Are we working with our processor to meet all of these requirements so that we'll be able to pass New York State testing and regulations to give you safe quality product? And when you're a small business and you're working to try to meet some of these guidelines that focus on sustainability, I work really hard to try to meet some of the objectives that New York has outlined for us. And I laid out my plan for my packaging for the entire year so that I would be ahead of the curve for Chinese New Year. And now all of this packaging that I have just had arrived from China no longer meets the requirements. So last week, in order to prepare my deliveries, I had to add 3 touch points of new labels to every product. What's the emergency? What's changed? The word emergency really bothers me as a business owner because usually when we see an emergency in a regulation, it means that something extraordinary has happened, that we need to be alarmed, that we need to move together as a group to say, this is so egregious, we cannot allow it to happen. I'm a child of the 80s. I remember when people first started tampering with Tylenol. And that was before we had child safe seals and labels on our packaging. It was an emergency at retail because medication was being tampered with. But when we as business owners have followed up with New York State to say, why the need for this emergency regulation overnight, no one can actually identify what constitutes the word emergency. And as a medical patient, as a medical advocate, and as the parent of a minor in this medical program, I do not understand why the OCM has not been able to step in and create emergency guidelines for the medical market when we've had dispensaries that have had to be closed because of lack of pharmacists being able to be on site, whether it was due to family injury, family vacation, medical leave. The OCM's answer was, you will not be able to open these dispensaries because if you do not have a pharmacist on site, you are not meeting your obligation as to what we need for you to offer a medical experience. However, during COVID, there was no problem in having us work without a pharmacist on site. So the truth of the matter is, we can choose an emergency. That's not really mutually aligned with what the definition of emergency is. So this is not just a hemp program. This is a program for cannabinoids and cannabis in New York State. There are regulations for medical, for adult use, and for hemp. It's one plant, one cycle, one circle. It shouldn't be so opposing and polar opposite for one part of the industry versus another.
Agreed. Thank you, Kimber. And I'm going to chime in last because I am not a hemp retailer. I am not I don't own or lead a CBD brand. I just take a lot of CBD. So, from my vantage point, most of you know I have a very long career in cannabis, professionally since 2015. But prior to that, I supported medical cannabis patients in the early 90s. Since the early 90s, my first patient that I worked with was my uncle in 1991. And I always found the value of cannabis and cannabinoid products. But I promise you that when I started my work with Women Grow and meeting folks like Melissa specifically, and she would always talk about CBD, and I'd be like, I don't know. I will be honest with you. Now I probably consume about 100 milligrams a day, which means I'm already non-compliant, because I'm consuming a lot of CBD a day. And now I understand it. Meeting Kimber and watching Kimber's knowledge evolve, I'm like, I'm like a fly on the wall. I just learn while she's learning, and her experience and her knowledge base around CBG, CBN, all the CBs, and some of them make me chuckle. But I just feel like as a consumer, I love to shop my state. I love to shop women led. Nee welcomed me so much. My first trip to Buffalo, we hosted an event together. She taught me about all her products. And I support, I use it on my externally, internally. I put it in my hair, I put it in my food. So I promise you, I'm upset as a consumer that some of the brands I know and love, some of the places I want to shop because I feel educated, I've gone to my gas station. What is the 17-year-old behind the counter going to teach me about CBD? No shade to him. Go get your money, boy. But listen, I want to be educated about CBD. I'm that kind of consumer. I want you to explain to me what are you using it for? How would this help you? So I think maybe, I don't know if the state's trying to put the toothpaste back in the tube. You let too many get out. Now you got to, I don't know what it is, but as a consumer, as someone who really loves having been educated, loves how the application of my education has benefited my health, I, as a consumer, think that these regulations are not, they don't have sense, and I'd like someone to readjust. And I don't want to have to shop outside of brands outside of my state to get what I want as a consumer. I'm going to get off my soapbox now and get back to work. Thank you.
Tanya,
Yes.
I just want to, earlier I came to you I came to the group as a presenter, but I just want a quick opportunity to explain just personally what this means for my business and what it means for me, these regulations. I came to this plant because I have several autoimmune disorders. I have celiac disease, Graves' disease, Lyme disease, oh my. And I went through menopause at the same time. And I was looking at surgery. I was looking at heavy duty pharmaceuticals. I had brain fog, and I really wasn't myself. And this plant offered me a solution. It offered me a way out. We had been, as an organization I was working with, we were looking at the potential for hemp to revitalize rural economies and farming economies here in upstate New York. But when I first was introduced to CBD at the time, and I started taking it, I'll say therapeutically, because I took the same amount every day in large quantities, between 50 and 75 milligrams a day. All of those issues I talked about, they all subsided. Everything went into remission. And I knew, with a business background, that this is something that I had to share with other people. But we all know that in this industry, we're not starting with a zero knowledge base. We have a stigmatized, misinformed knowledge base because of the war on drugs. And so we have had to work double time with education, with advocacy. Everybody that you see here, although we are in hemp businesses, we all have advocated for adult use. We have always been about access. And this isn't just something we put together just because we're interested in business. I want you to see, I've got these three products, are these three women that are there. Like for many consumers, I'm the conduit between Jamie and Kimber and Eve and this plant. I have this great opportunity, and so does Nee, when people walk through our door, to really educate them, explain, everything we can about the plant. And yes, nine times a day, I am now explaining to people why they can't buy a pre-roll from me. I don't want to have to explain to people why they can't get their full spectrum products, why they can't get the brands they have come to rely on. And many of us have put our heart, our soul, our livelihoods, we've put everything into this business, and not simply because we were waiting around for adult use. That's great. And I think it's amazing. We've all advocated for that. But some folks really want the hemp industry to thrive. The farmers, the cultivators, these brands, manufacturers, it's okay to have as many access points as possible. And these hemp regulations, they sort of hurt personally, I have to say. I couldn't really believe. I'm like, why are those of us who are so compliant, who were doing the right thing and bending over backwards, why are you putting attention on us right now? And that's part of why I wanted to put that one slide in there about all the different stakeholders. It's a very complex issue. Again, when we're starting with the non-scientific definition of the difference between hemp and marijuana, when we're all cannabis. But I just wanted to give you my heartfelt plea to please get involved and to share as much as you can with others, so they understand that this may not seem to affect them, but it will. And we don't want people to only have to have a license or to show their ID before they have access to this plant.
100%. I just want to share before we start to wrap up. I'm not going to share Jamie and Melissa's. I'm going to share the other two ladies who send videos in. because we've heard from you. We know the deal. So
Tanya,
just
and just before when you show the videos, I do want to read something. So maybe I can do it now, and then we'll show the video.
okay.
So what I like to do, and the reason why we're doing this impromptu, it wasn't part of it. I just decided it's my brand's manifesto. It's Hustle and Flows. It's an internal document. We haven't placed it anywhere on the website. Similar to Melissa, I have a story, a personal story, which doesn't show in the manifesto, but it does show why we wanted to bring this to life in New York City. And so I'm just going to take 30 seconds to read this through before we show the videos. New York City is the definition of duality and diversity, where minorities are the majority. We get knocked down and get back up. We're isolated but interconnected, and everyone is someone and no one all at the same time. The pursuit of our happiness, whatever that looks like, requires stillness, exploration, clarity, and creativity to walk us through life. As urban dwellers, this energy is amplified and felt through our core on a daily basis, serving as an unspoken motivating force that propels us all towards empowered living. But the never-ending grind comes with stress, and far too often we neglect to recharge our minds and bodies that serve as the machines that carry us through life. Our vision is to change the way we hustle through a lens of personal balance, wellness, and restoration. We believe that healing creates a ripple effect. You come first, because when you feel your best, you can be your best. Every explicit duality is an implicit unity. By healing internally and pouring back effortlessly into communities we coexist with, we can hustle with flow instead of fatigue, build our futures without burnout, and create new realities of wellness that stay with us for generations. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Okay, we have some ladies who sent some videos, and we are putting together a greater reel. That's another reason why we want you part of that grievance form, because then we'll have your email. And if you want to send a video like these women, we're going to put together a longer reel to get it in front of as many legislators, regulators as we can. Listen, it's a small but mighty mission, but the more of us that are doing it, better, let me share. All right, ladies.
My name is Brianna Neff. I am the founder and chief food scientist of Brelixi Functional Elixirs, and I am New York Hemp. Brelixi is a New York licensed distributor and retailer. We support safe and sensible hemp regulations in New York, and I believe that the New York hemp regulations are hurting young female Black entrepreneurs like myself, and also hurting all of the retailers and customers that want the incredible wellness benefits that the hemp plant has to offer.
So that was Bree from Brelixi. Love her. And one other.
My name is Wendy Bertrand, and I'm the founder and recipe creator of Sin 420 CBD. I am a New York State licensed hemp retailer, and I support safe and sensible hemp regulations for New York. I also believe that these New York emergency hemp regulations will not only disproportionately harm many women and minority-led small businesses like my own financially, but as a registered nurse, in my view, they will harm our consumers who have come to rely on accessible, safe, and legal cannabinoid products. I am New York Hemp.
Thank you, Wendy. I know you're out there too. So if you want to contribute to this reel that we build, please hit us up. If you know a hemp retailer, New York hemp retailer that you love, that we may not have been able to reach, hit us up. Let us know. I guess we're going to start to wrap up, but I just wanted to hit everybody on our way out. Our call to action is really, there's a slide as we wrap up, an email to send public comment to our regulators. Keep in touch with us, because as we get more information, there is a lawsuit from actually a non-New York CBD brand. But hey, we'll take them, So, and they're not women led, and that's okay. They're big, You know, they got a little more resources than we do, so let them lift that work. I think I heard somebody mention that before. So if you want to endorse that, they have one of those like click in sign, cycling frog. Yes, click and not listen. Me and Nee know. Me and Nee know. Cycling frog, we get down with them, you know. Um, and I'm gonna do a little circle. So as we start to wrap up, I'm gonna start with Eve, and then we'll hit up to Nee. What would you like to share with our audience as we wrap up? What's your call to action, Eve, that you'd like to share?
My call to action is speak up. If people aren't communicating their own experiences, if people aren't sharing how much this hemp plant means to them in their lives, how much they've benefited from this medicine, then people aren't going to know. People aren't going to know what's happening if we're not talking about what's going on here in New York. So share your experiences, share your stories.
Thank you, Eve. I appreciate you joining us. Kimber?
I think the most important thing we need to do is realize that this isn't just about people who have companies and brand builders. We need to really be reaching out to the end consumer. The end consumer doesn't realize that these regulations have dropped. They don't really realize how this is going to affect their ability to obtain medicine. And that's really the voice that we need to be piling on to strengthen and diversify our voice. Yes, we're entrepreneurs, and unfortunately, if we don't have locations to actually sell our products, it doesn't matter how great your brand is, there's no place for it to be accessible. But without consumers actually realizing that somebody's making a decision for them that they may not agree with, and they don't realize that they have a voice to speak up, none of this really goes further. And I fear that that's really the reason why it's not getting more attention, because the only people who really feel the magnitude of this are the people in our community. And when I go out and I do these education events to just average New Yorkers, I'm often stunned at how few people know we have a legal cannabis adult use program, a medical program. They think all these stores are the same. And I think it's a shame, and I think it's wrong that as licensed hemp retailers that Hemp and Humanity and Sativa Remedy don't have a sticker from New York State saying this is a certified hemp retailer. You should feel safe to come in and buy products here the way you see in medical and adult use.
Thank you, Kimber. Love you, Mama. Jamie?
Yes. So first, again, I just want to thank everyone who joined us tonight. The comments came in. There were so many of you really just pouring your heart out to us from a consumer perspective and a retailer brand perspective. So thank all of you. We're also, to just add to what Kimber said, we're also collecting testimonials from consumers. And so please reach out to your consumers. If anyone here, I think Melissa E., she said she's going to email me. We'll collect all testimonials. I also want to give a shout out to Nishta Shanti. She's a journalist, and we're going to reach out to you. So thank you. But the one thing that I'll just like to leave is that, we're calling again, and I said it earlier, allies. We need every ally possible to join us. We are part, and I have to say it again, we are part of the cannabis family. Hemp is not separate. It's all one plant. Melissa said it earlier, hemp clothes us, feeds us, shelters us, heals us. And we want to be treated as such. We want to be treated like part of the family. So we're really looking for all the allies out there. Everyone who joined tonight, please reach out to anyone and everyone you can think of from a brand, retailer, consumer perspective, anyone on the LCM, journalists. We really need to expose this. There is the harm that this can do. It's like Kimber said, not just for our businesses, but for the people. And we're doing it for the people. For us here, yes, this is the business and we have to be profitable. Otherwise, we won't make it. But for us, it's been people over profit always. And
I'm people.
Yes, exactly. And we need to.
We love you, people.
Thank you.
And we need our voices heard, and there's only so much that's a small group of us can do. So we need that advocacy efforts to grow and grow. And I just pray and trust that this can just be the beginning of the magnifying effect. So thank you.
Thank you, Jamie. And Melissa?
Yes, I just want to say that one of the reasons why we wanted to do this and put this information out there that will be shared is to give you the language and the support to be able to talk about this and be able to communicate and answer those questions about why now. And I'll tell you something, over the last 5 years, I have worked with thousands of customers. I have put them together with the right product and formula and protocol. And it's something that I enjoy doing, but it's not easy when I also have to teach about the plant, teach about the endocannabinoid system. You know, as someone mentioned, all the C's, I mean, there's 130 cannabinoids, not to mention the terpenes and the flavonoids. There's a lot to talk about. I already have to explain to people every day why they can't buy weed from me. And I support that. I explain, well, there's no legal dispensaries in this area yet. So there's a lot to talk about, and it can get really, the lines can get really blurred. But this one entry to the plant, these cannabinoids that are non-THC heavy, they are the gateway in a positive way to this plant. It's so important that they remain accessible to the consumer. And the point is, I'm okay. You want me to card people? I already do, quite frankly. I don't sell anything that's consumable to anyone under 21, and that includes a tincture that I know doesn't have THC. But that's what I choose to for my business. If you want me to do that, I will do it. But don't just say broadly, I'm protecting the public from these evil cannabinoids, because that's just fear mongering, and we are going backwards and backwards. And we thought we addressed that already. None of us want to sell to children, and none of them can afford it, quite frankly. But we are, even though this was done backwards, they said, these are the regs, we're being handed down. One of the reasons why we're doing this, and one of the reasons why Jamie has wanted to put this other infrastructure together and make it easy for you to add your video, add your testimonial, is because we do still have an opportunity to formally comment on these regulations, but we all know what's happening in our bigger industry, and it's easy for this to get lost, and it has been getting lost. October 4th looms large for most people around here, but we also only have a few weeks left to have our voices heard. So please, everybody participate, and thank you. And what's the emergency?
And last but not least, Nee.
Thank you so much for everyone for participating, and big shout out to you again, Tanya Mama, for giving us this platform to have our voice heard. I will close out with a big grounding statement. I believe that these regulations will cause more harm than good. I and so many of us support safe and sensible hemp regulations for New York. The emergency hemp regulations don't make any sense. They are unfair, unreasonable, and will cause irreparable harm. So we ask that you stand with us, that you make your voice heard, that you put in your public comment, that you follow up with us and support us in our endeavors to amplify this message. We are New York Hemp, and we do not understand what is the emergency.
Thank you. Thank you all. Thank you all for, we had a great audience that kind of stuck with us the whole time. Thank you so much. We're going to wrap up so you can enjoy the rest of your evening. We're going to post this everywhere for people to see. When is the public comment window close?
The public window comment will close, I believe, October 9th.
Okay, cool. So we have some time. So if you know any brands who want to send us their grievances, I popped the link in a couple of times. And thank you so much for all you do. And yes, we need allies, and you got one in me. So 110%. Everyone have a wonderful night. Ladies, I'll talk to you soon, and have a great one. All right, ladies. Good night.